The U.S. Open has been in full swing for 2 weeks now, as tennis greats from all over have hit the courts here at Flushing Meadows, while the talent around the world, especially countries including Spain, France, and Russia, continues to soar. The U.S. only boasts 2 male players in the top 20. So why is the U.S. lagging on the court while the rest of the world is thriving? Joining me now to answer that question and to discuss the business of tennis in the U.S. is Gordon Smith, Chief Operating Officer and Executive Director of the USTA. So thanks for joining us. Let's talk first of all about what's going on here at the U.S. Open. It's been since 2003 since we saw an American male win the U.S. Open. Why are American males having such a tough time in professional tennis?
Well, you know, it's a thing that comes and goes naturally, but your statistics were correct. But you should also know that we do have a man back in the top 10, Andy Roddick is, and we have 4 men in the top 25, not the top 20, but 4 in the top 25 for the first time since 2006. So things are on the upswing for our male players. As you may or may not know, Patrick McEnroe is head of player development for the United States Tennis Association. We have just within the last few years opened a facility there to help develop world champions, and we are full in with both feet on making sure that there are champions coming forward from the U.S. in the future.
If you look at tennis in general, though, globally, I mean, is the excitement kind of waning? A lot of people are saying Federer may be nearing his peak. Nadal is always plagued by injuries. I mean, is there or are there young stars to sort of take the mantle?
Well, I think there are. I mean, look at the women's side. Look at Caroline Wozniacki. I mean, she's got star written all over her. Seeded #1 here, by the way. So I think there are young people coming forward. Nadal is still in his mid-20s. He's got a long way to go. #1 in the world. I don't think it's fading at all. I think the excitement is growing worldwide, which is an issue for us with players. I mean, tennis is the hottest game around worldwide. And by the way, in the U.S., it's as hot as it's ever been to play tennis. We got 30 million people playing tennis for the first time in a generation. So I think both professionally and in the recreational game, tennis is really booming.
You mentioned Andy Roddick. He is obviously a big favorite, especially of the ladies here, and he's been around for a while. What about the kids? I mean, are there any hot up-and-comers that sponsors really want to get their hands on here as far as U.S. men?
Well, we've got a number of them. When they're young, we don't want them, frankly, being involved with sponsorship and things because it's unclear whether those kids ought to go to college or ought to turn pro, and we need to make sure that they maintain that ability to choose when it's time to go to college, and they make a decision whether or not to turn pro later rather than earlier in their teen years.
What about the popularity of tennis? I mean, you and I were talking during the break about what's happening at Forest Hills. That's where the U.S. Open used to be held originally, and they're having troubles keeping their club together. They're talking about selling maybe some of their real estate. Is that representative nationally of tennis clubs?
No, not at all. In fact, tennis is really booming. As I said, 30 million people in this country played tennis last year. And that's more than in the last 25 years, and the upswing is huge. And so tennis is as popular as it has ever been. Tennis clubs are going great, but frankly, the great mass of tennis is not played at private clubs. Tennis is played in parks, and it's played all around on playgrounds. So it's not the club situation where most people play, but the clubs are booming.
So what about the recession and what's happened on Wall Street? I mean, has that affected tournaments, the tournament scene? Do you still see sponsors coming out in the same numbers that you saw them coming out in 2007 and before?
Well, I can certainly talk about the U.S. Open, and our sponsors have been tremendously supportive, and our fans have been tremendously supportive. Last year, in a very bad recession, very bad economic times, we had the second most successful U.S. Open ever financially, and we're doing better this year. And all we can do is say, you know, we have the World Championships of tennis here every year. The fans support it, the sponsors support it, and they're great for us.
All right, hey, Gordon, thanks so much for joining us. Gordon Smith, Chief Operating Officer of the USTA. Carol here from the Billie Jean King Tennis Center in Flushing Meadows, Queens.